I want to talk to you about my friend Charlie Crawford. He's a 10-time NFR qualifier.
Charlie Crawford, time to just shake it out and win. Got it on him fast, set
there
up.
We are.
Here's a day
nice
money
run.
lead. You betcha 3-8.
That's an absolute perfect run. Timing was perfect from the time the first swing is up. He's got the control. Charlie made it happen by being timed up with his horse with the steer, and being able to not just rope, but to pick that steer's head up without changing the momentum for the heeler at all.
We know his beautiful wife, Jackie, all three of their beautiful children, the founder of the Liberty and Loyalty Foundation, which this year will exceed $1 million raised for military and first responders. I've said it 1,000 times. Charlie, it's time to rope, nod and ride, whip and spur. I want to welcome you to the Charlie Crawford Podcast. Let's ride.
The Charlie Crawford Podcast is proud to partner with NRS. Don't forget to shop this destination for all things Western. NRS has everything you need from boots, hats, apparel, bits and spurs, saddles, ropes, feed, and more. Visit their flagship store in Decatur, Texas, as well as other locations in Granbury, Texas, and Wickenburg, Arizona. From your hat to your boots and everything in between, shop NRS in-store or online at nrsworld.com. Hello, everybody. Today we have John Dowdy, the president and owner of Equinety. Now, I know you guys have all seen the product, heard about the product. They're everywhere. You see it on the Cowboy Channel, big sponsors of the BFI, and a lot of the big ropins, and a star-studded cast of team ropers, some of the best guys in the world that use this product. So, John, man, it's great to have you on today, man. I appreciate it.
I sure appreciate you having me out.
Now, you came from Florida. You're not originally from Florida, but that's where you live now, correct?
Correct. Yeah, I grew up in Oklahoma, Bristow, Oklahoma, so all my family's still out there, and graduated college in around 98, I believe it was. Then I moved up to Michigan, was up there for 3 years on a startup venture, and that didn't go so well, and had to make different plans. So I ended up in Florida and got married and have a couple boys.
Man, a lot to celebrate going on right now in Florida.
Yes.
I know a guy, I don't keep track much of sports, especially basketball. I love March Madness though.
Oh yeah.
And I just happened to be in a spot where I believe it was Florida versus, I believe it was Houston. And I think Florida pulled it off at the last second, if I remember right.
Yeah, I missed all of that.
Yeah.
But I heard it's all over the news. So yeah. And of course Florida, they're going crazy down there. But
well, there's a lot going on. Mar-a-Lago is bringing a lot of star-studded people across the world.
Yes,
are coming. So a lot of exciting things just with that as well.
Absolutely. Well, going back to, of course, Florida's always been a destination for people anyways, going back to the grandparents, that's where everybody wanted to retire, and seems like it really hasn't stopped. And, during COVID, when things were all locked down, I think we were locked down for maybe 2 weeks, and then everything just kind of opened up, and, you still had some stores. I got kicked out of a Guitar Center because I wouldn't wear a mask. But, anyways, yeah, I mean, it's. I think now when you cross into the state where it typically says "Welcome to Florida," I believe now it says "Welcome to the free state of Florida."
What do you think it was that created that? Because I heard that Florida kind of set the standard on how to handle COVID. Like they were the first ones to open. They were the first ones to get back going. Man, I heard it's a lot of positive things about how Florida was handling everything.
Yeah, I think it had to do with DeSantis was a big part of that. And then the people that surrounded him, they knew that everything was being manipulated. And so they just weren't going to fall in line with it. And somebody had to be first. And I guess they said, hey, we'll be first. So
what a stud.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. He's done, as far as a governor, he has been absolutely amazing.
I had read somewhere, or somebody was telling me about it, that I think New York and Florida have the same amount of population. But I've heard where Florida's at economically and where New York is economically are two completely different brackets.
Yeah, well, I guess it goes back to what Trump said, you go woke, you go broke kind of a thing. And, man, it's just been 100 miles an hour down there in Florida. Like, it is booming, the housing market. They're putting up huge apartment complexes. The influx of people that are moving in there is absolutely insane. One of the challenges with being in Florida, because it's not a state where they manufacture a lot of stuff. Obviously, you have the the citrus fruits and sugar cane fields and things like that. But, it's expensive down there because they can haul truckloads of things into Florida, but there's not a whole lot to haul out, so it's not like steel or any of these other, operations down there. So,
yeah, because I've heard hay is really expensive there. Really, because I think it all has to be imported down, correct?
Yeah.
Like alfalfa.
It's very challenging because it's very sandy. And so one of the challenges they have with horses is, getting the sand in the gut. But, when I first went down there, that was in 2002. I was really surprised when I got involved with, bringing Equinety to the market, which wasn't until 2014, but how many horses and rodeos and all this stuff. I mean, Florida is crazy in the horse. Of course, the old cowboys there, they call Florida crackers, is what they referred to them as, the old ranchers down there.
Well, because I've heard the beef industry is real strong down there too, correct?
Yep, there's a lot of cattle, and you wouldn't think because it's Florida. You think beaches and sun, and which definitely is that, but in the middle of the state. I went on a buddy of mine is a helicopter pilot, and so his wife is a barrel racer, and I was at her event one time, and he's like, "Hey, anytime you want to go up in a helicopter, let me know. We'll fly up to Port Charlotte or Punta Gorda, and we'll go to Taco Tuesday." I said, What? And he goes, yeah. He goes, oh, all the old-time pilots, they come in and fly into this airport, and they have food trucks. And I'm like, how expensive are these tacos, flying into? And so anyways, I called him up. It was probably about 5 months ago, and I said, hey, let's do Taco Tuesday. He goes, all right. So he lives out North Fort Myers. And so I got there. He's on 15 acres, and his helicopter's sitting right in his front yard. So we get in that thing. And it was about a 30, 45-minute flight. And, man, there is like nothing. Like, you're flying over, middle of Florida, and, there's swamplands and but open ground. He goes, yeah. He goes, the good thing about Florida is when you crash, there's nothing to hit.
Yeah.
I'm like, thanks for the reassurance. He goes, but if you have an emergency where you've got to go to the bathroom, you can just set it down anywhere and go,
Yeah.
So, but yeah, it was pretty fun.
Yeah, beautiful state.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's cool to see the kind of an entrepreneurial state. I follow that Patrick Bet-David podcast, the PBD podcast, quite a bit. I really like because they talk so much about business and, kind of what's going on. And, I think just taxes and just the way DeSantis is running everything over there, how they're running everything over there, it's welcoming a lot of businesses.
Yeah, I think the latest thing is they're trying to do away with property taxes.
I've seen that.
Yeah, which is going to be huge. I mean, and when you think about it, it's like if you own the land and you paid everything off, why are you still paying property taxes?
Well, and I think in my opinion, what we've seen Elon Musk uncovering with Doge is doesn't give us a whole lot of confidence in what they're doing with our money.
Right, 100%. Yeah, if people really knew or started paying attention, yeah.
Yeah, it's wild.
It's nuts.
Some wild stuff going on.
Yeah, there sure is. It's a great time to be alive.
I tell you what, there really is. I've got pictures on the wall of, my last NFR in Texas, which was cool. I'm one of, like me and Logan Medlin, we made that NFR. It was his first time and my last time together. And, we kind of looked at it, was like, I was just looking at all the, the stands, the people ain't there. Like, you wouldn't even know that's a picture of the NFR because, it's not it's a yellow arena, but then look at all the people that aren't there. You can tell it's not the Thomas and Mack.
Right.
Right. And then the stupid mask that everyone had to wear, or we would get kicked out. But then we thought about it. He's like, how cool is that? Like, we were one of 14 other people to ever get to do
true.
that, to get to compete there where it wasn't at the NFR. And, you look at it and you're like, hey, look, this state was actually still doing stuff while other ones weren't. I kept looking at it like how embarrassing it was that everyone was wearing a mask, but then it was a crazy time to be alive, because it was a very concerning time because we didn't know if we were going to have to get the vaccine before the NFR to compete.
Right.
And my wife was pregnant and I don't know nothing. I don't know anything. I just know it didn't feel right.
Mm-hmm.
I was dead against it. I'm like, then we're not, because I'm not getting forced to this. The mask was hard enough for me.
Yes.
But yeah, then now what we're seeing, how it's kind of, now we're seeing tariff wars, now we're seeing trade wars, but we're starting to see where we truly have a president that's trying to bring things back to the American people, and it's obvious he's willing to die for it.
Oh, 100%. And, going back to the mask, there was, so we were locked down for like 2 weeks, and then there was the mask and, all this propaganda around that. Well, there were some kids that were, in school being forced to wear the mask. Well, there was a group of parents, moms, that all collected these masks and sent them off to a lab, and it came back, and just the horror that they found. And so that was a big thing of like, hey, this is not healthy. You're not breathing anything
God did
good.
not intend for that mask to be on.
No.
There's certain things where I'm sure that there's, during procedures and, the doctors, there's obvious times when that needs to be on there for certain instances.
Sure.
But not to live your life.
No.
Or God would have had one on us.
Yeah, we would have been born with one of those
Exactly.
things.
Yeah. Yeah, wild time.
Yeah, it is.
But then, like say now we're seeing stuff. It's and there's nothing to really predict right now other than it's going to be wild to see how some of this how these transfers and how these transactions go with other countries.
Oh, for sure. Well, the other thing is, I don't think. Well, one, the left never predicted that Trump was going to get in the first round, anyways. But then you have to wonder, depending on which conspiracy hole you want to go down, did he allow it to be stolen, quote, stolen in 2020? So it could, because if you remember right before the 20 election, how divided the country was. And if he would have come back in and started making arrests and doing this and that, then it would have been more divided. So you have to wonder, did he allow it to happen the way that it did? So everybody could, or the vast majority could be awakened. But then he also had 4 years to plan. So which is why when he got back in, man, he's coming in so hot, and the left, they just don't know what to do.
They can't keep up.
And, it's really sad because you really see how powerful the mind is and human nature and people's belief system. And human nature always fascinates me because it doesn't change no matter how old you are. Human nature is human nature. And your belief system, that's why they say, oh, you got to keep politics and religion out of things. Well, why? Well, because most time it turns into an argument and, I believe this and I believe that. But, you take an atheist, if you're born into an atheist family and that's all you know, then that's what you believe. But it's interesting that pretty much every atheist that has done research to try to prove that the Bible is false ends up becoming a Christian.
Heard that a lot.
Yeah.
It's wild, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Because the facts are there,
I've heard that strategy, where he lost, and I could look at it one or two ways, because I've heard that he's had some businesses that he's bankrupt to almost see who was with him. Now, whether he did it intentionally or whether he found out that, like, when those things go down, you find out who's on you.
Yes.
And who's against you, who's in the boat and who's jumping off. Right. So that way, when you start the next one, you know who's on your team.
That's right.
And I tell you what, whether he did it or whether it didn't, when he came back this time, I don't think we could got this done if he'd have won in 2020.
No, I don't.
And I'm not saying he lost, but I'm saying is that it feels like a blessing because the team he's got now, Elon, just go down the whole line.
Yeah.
And
he got everybody in. Everybody. So, and the other interesting thing too, because in previous presidencies, whoever was, quote, put in the spot, they had the whole team behind them. Don't worry about your cabinet. We got all that covered. And Trump come in and said, no, I'm going to finance my own and do my own thing, which again, when you've got 4 years to plan for this, if not longer, if it was all part of the plan.
That Hegseth, I really like him. I know it's a little early, and he's had a couple little mishaps, but I was listening to some SEALs talk about it the other day, and they're like, what do you think about this guy, though, as a leader? And they're like, we wish we had him. He goes, this guy's down there in PT with these guys. He goes, if you can't do 15 push-ups, you're out. He's bringing back what needs to be done. Yep. He said the thing that happened, he said that could happen to anybody. Shouldn't have happened.
Yep.
But, having two names, those things happen. They'll learn from it. It won't happen again, I guarantee you. But he said that guy is a leader.
Yes.
Is a man amongst men. He goes, that's the guy we wish anyone would fight and die for, that guy right there. Because he leads from the front, as showing them what to do. But so that was pretty cool. But then Elon, and I love Tulsi Gabbard. I liked RFK. Yeah. I thought, when where he's putting them in place, it's interesting to see where this is going to go.
It's a shakeup, and stuff is coming out so fast.
Mm-hmm.
the opposition doesn't know what to do. They can't.
I mean, we got the Panama Canal. Canada's going to be the 51st state. You know, I mean, we're going on. Like, I can't even keep up.
No, I know. I saw a video the other day where the caption was, "Everything that Trump does is by design." And it was interesting because he's like, "Hey, you know what? We should make Canada the 51st state. Okay, let's go over here." And they're like, "What did he say?" And now everybody starts talking about it. And then as people start digging in, it's like, well, wait a minute. They're charging us 250% tariff on dairy products. Like, who knew that? Versus if he just said, hey, do you know Canada's charging us 250% or whatever the percentage is? It's over 200. If he would have just said, hey, they charge us that, then it was like, okay, yeah, they just move on. But same thing with, yeah, we're going to take the Panama Canal back, or, hey, we're going to do this. And
strategic.
Oh, we're going to, Greenland
is
another one.
Yep. And
so he throws stuff out there. And he is just trailblazing 100 miles an hour. Nobody can keep up with the guy.
I love it.
Plus, he lives off soda and, fried chicken.
So crazy. So crazy.
I mean,
the one thing I really hope that he takes a look at and puts in part of his priority throughout all these trades and tariffs, and I believe he will, but I really hope that we start getting our farmers and ranchers taken care of, because I feel like we're losing them. Yep. I feel like American beef should be put first. Ranchers should be able to make a good living no matter what the market is. They shouldn't go where, well, yeah, 3 bad years, but then we have that one good year. That's not a living.
No.
That's not a business either. And so I'm really hoping that there's ways now, because we're losing them. If we're not careful, no one wants to. I mean, if a kid was growing up in his right mind and took economics at all, a lot of them are not wanting to, because they've seen the stress that their parents had gone through. And that's not a living. It's not a business. And I really hope that gets to where because I'd love to see them guys thrive. So them kids, they want to step up and take the family business, because otherwise it just turns into another developing project, where we're losing all these ranches.
Well, take that same example and look at what did kids do with their dads when they were growing up? They worked on cars, and that was like, go back to the happy days, right? I mean,
Fonzie.
Yeah. But, it was like the dads working on the cars and the kids are out there. Well, you get into these new vehicles, and I heard not that long ago where in 2 or 3 years, you're not even going to be able to pop the hood. And they've already taken transmission dipsticks out of cars because nobody knows how to check them. And it's like, who can even work on these things? I mean, the vehicles nowadays, you break down, you're hosed.
Yeah. Well, and think of what we're going to be if we don't have food.
Yeah, 100%.
You know what I mean? If we don't have people out there, the cowboys taking care of these cattle, so we can get them there and we can have meat on the table.
That's right.
So to me, that I really hope that gets looked at, because that's a big part of our industry and our livelihood.
Yep.
So I really hope that
100%.
Well, so you're here for the American.
Yes.
Have you been here before?
I have not been to the American before. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
It just keeps getting better every year. It really does. Now, I haven't gone last year because I've been so busy with clinics, but man, the last time I was there, Jackie won it and won the $1 million or split it with Ty Harris. But man, I think they brought in the working cow horse, some of the working cow horse guys in there, and kind of let the people see that. And
that's
then
awesome.
Just new ideas.
Yep.
And then brought Kojo in between kind of the top 10, and then brought Kojo in before the Final Four. So when the Final Four came, it's just a packed crowd, and I'm like, genius.
Yes.
I love what they're doing for the entertainment, a part of our industry.
Well, and I think down to the core, going back to human nature, people have a fantasy or have this image in their head about the cowboy and what that was like. Years ago, my wife and I went down to Tombstone. You ever been down there? Tombstone?
Yeah.
And gone through all the birdcage theater?
I was in college.
Oh, okay.
We had college rodeos down there in Douglas, and we drove through there.
So the birdcage theater is sitting on the corner, and apparently it was never burned down, because the town had burned down, I think, twice. But the birdcage theater was on a corner, had an empty lot, and so it was like never touched. And apparently back in the day, it was all boarded up and left for who knows how many years. And when they unboarded it, everything's still the way that it was. So you can go through tours.
Oh man.
There's a poker table underneath the stage down there. It was the longest running poker game, I think, 365 days running without stopping or something crazy. But what was interesting to me going through that is the whole cowboy era wasn't very long. Right after the Civil War, 1865, and then it only lasted up through the 80s, because then it kind of just dissipated. But you look at all of the cowboy movies and all the stuff of that, but the cowboy era wasn't that long. That's pretty fascinating.
Yeah.
So, all right, well, my whole point to that was going back to the American and bringing in, so, opening it up to Americans across the country that don't go to rodeos or whatever, and then they pull them in with a concert or whatever it might be, and then they get to see this live stuff, and then they have access to the Cowboy Channel and be able to watch all this stuff. So it's
bringing in new people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's where I think Kid Rock's doing an amazing job of.
Yes.
Straight up entertainer anyway. My favorite musician, and everyone knows that, 'cause I brag about him probably on every single episode. But I love what he's doing. I've listened to some of his podcasts that he's done where he's doing one heck of a job of promoting our industry to people that would never may have seen it, and developing a fan base, bringing his following and fan base, and introducing a lot of people to rodeo. And
yeah, it's cool.
That's a good thing. Some of the hard part about our industry, I think, is so tough, is you're trying to keep the tradition, but in the same sense, how do you keep the tradition, but then also still make it to where it's sellable? Because this is an entertainment we're providing.
Yes. Yep.
And for the contestants, this is a living as well. So you're trying to keep the tradition, but then also, be able to bring some money in it. And it's a tough balance, because I know it's for long. If you don't keep the tradition, then you lose kind of what we're seeing in sports, where people are kneeling and stuff like that. So we'd love to keep the industry to where, luckily, we're the last ones. And I think that's what's made it so appealing and never went woke. We were still trying to have rodeos during the pandemic. Everyone still stands for the national anthem and takes their hats off during the prayer, for every rodeo. And so I think that really appealed to him, because he bleeds red, white, and blue as much as anybody. And
100%.
And then for him to watch him just kind of drag race the team rope and all the time events, it's awesome. I loved it.
I heard a funny story about Kid Rock about a year ago. My wife and I were down in Florida. We were talking to this guy, and he's like, and what's Kid Rock's real name?
Bobby Ritchie.
I would say, when he was small, he had a speech impediment. And so this guy's mom was his teacher. And so now his mom's in her 80s. And every time he sees his mom, she's like, I am so worried about him, just what he's doing with his life now. And he's like, Mom, have you ever heard of a guy by the name of Kid Rock? Yeah, I think so. I said, well, that's who you're worried. I wouldn't be worrying too much about it.
Yeah, he's killing it. He's killing it.
Oh, man. Yeah.
Yeah, so do you guys sponsor the American, or are you just coming down to watch?
Yeah, just coming
down to watch. The BFI you did, correct?
Yes, we've been sponsoring with the BFI, I think, for about 4 years.
Man, what they're doing, they're bringing some huge numbers in the team roping industry, to where you don't have to go to Vegas to do it. I mean, for this area, this is so nice to where, because you can either do both or you can pick one.
Yep.
And a lot of people are picking one, because I deal with a lot of clinics around here. A lot of guys are picking that one for one is closer. And then they don't have to go, because it's expensive to go all the way out in Vegas and hang out.
Yeah, it's a
but
long
they still
ways.
have the money,
yes,
because their payouts are great.
I tell you what, it's been fun to be a part of this for the last 4 years. And of course, this year they went to 2 arenas, so
that would help a lot with time then.
Yeah. So one of the days they were through at like 5:30, and everybody's still like, okay, what do we do now? But I tell you what's really neat. This year, there were several of us talking about it. It's exactly like a Vegas without all of Vegas, and everybody's just concentrated. Everybody, the who's who of everybody's right there. And it's not like you can go, everybody just hangs out, so it's really neat to network and be able to see everybody. And
yeah, for sure.
Everybody's not spread out.
And then what about T-Wade and Thorpe's event, that youth event that they're doing? I know you had a lot to do with that. You endorsed both of them, I believe.
Yes. And
I thought it's really inspiring in what they're doing with their platform they've been given. Well, they earned it, but
sure.
But to see what they're doing with their platform with the young kids.
Yeah, a couple years ago, we were at the Danny Dietz, I was at the Danny Dietz, and I was talking to T-Wade and Thorpe, and they were talking about bringing this event back because they remember it when they were growing up, and there hadn't been anything like that since. They're thinking, hey, we're gonna start this up. Do you want to be a part of it? I'm like, well, yeah, I'm in. Whatever you need. And so last year, it was a huge success for the first year. And, that was the first year that we started a junior team. And then this year, I think they were up 60% over last year. Everything, the parking lot was packed. I mean, everything was sold out. I'm like, I think you guys might have to add some more days on this thing or something, but it was a lot of fun. Yeah. And kids everywhere and people, taking the time to extra time with the kids. And, then you got the goat roping and the dummy roping and the open and, the pro-am. I mean, just so much stuff. And the stands were full, it was crazy.
That is cool.
Yeah.
He had called me after we had talked to, just a little bit kind of throughout it, because he'd come on the podcast and they were promoting their event, and just such a great idea, just being able to watch, kind of like I say, what he's doing with his platform. But there's a place I do up there in Dakotas that I do some clinics, and the Haugans, they've got a daughter that she's a stud. She's just such a good hand with horses. They came and roped a couple of days before the event, came down early, and her horse won, I think, either Sure Horse or she won the horsemanship award.
Yes.
And
they won a horse, right?
Then they won a horse.
Which has that ever been done before?
Mom was texting me, and I was like, what? Yeah, that's a great idea.
Yeah.
And it worked out good for their family because they do good with them.
Yes.
And there's 3 daughters. They're all really handy. But I was like, that's going to go to a great home. Like, that horse is going to do something.
Right.
And so, but yeah, he was telling me like what they were looking for. It wasn't so much about just the horse as much as it was how she handled her horse. How, and I told her, I said, look, I've seen that girl. She's a stud, man, because you'll watch her. Her hands are so good. Like her timing and her feel of her hands, how she's helping the horse, when she's done, she's petting it, and just how she handles it, you can tell like she's really good with them. And I'm like, that's a pretty good eye, to be able to see that amongst all the rest of them. So that was, those are things that's going to impact, to also promote horsemanship in our industry as well.
100%.
Especially at that age.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and the other thing that was pretty neat was just how many states, and there were Canadians that came down for this thing too. Last year, I know there were some people from Australia that came in.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's drawn a huge thing. And then for the second year, of course, with T. Wade and Thorpe backing it, and who they are. So that's pretty huge.
Well, I think that horsemanship, in my opinion too, I hope that really starts resonating, because, there's so many kids just looking for reps, trying to get run after run after run, and watching them horses just get stronger and more blowed up. And to be able to start, and I get it, you got to have a certain amount of reps to be able to continue to get better. But, there was a kid, that's one of the things I was talking with them about, just being able to have some sponsors, or even them kind of educating those kids on being very careful on their emotions. Because if you're not careful, that one little dipshit that loses his temper and whips his horse or does something inappropriate, what that does is it pulls sponsors out.
Yes.
Because they're out.
Yep.
If this is what you're going to do and this is how it's going to look, I've heard about it happening already. And so I remember when I was a kid, we used to talk about, I remember my dad, he would always say something when somebody was doing something. And I remember as a kid, I'd say something, if somebody was doing that, like, hey man, come on, man, don't do that here. And they're like, it's none of your damn business. This is my horse. Well, I kind of believed that for a long time, because I was like, well, I guess he's right. It ain't my horse. Yeah. I guess I was wrong.
Right.
Well, then I'd heard about sponsors pulling out because of some kid did that. And then I'm like, okay, now it is our business. Now it is our business. Now we're losing money because of that.
Yep.
There's things going on in the industry now where you're one click away, video away from that stuff getting out there. And man, you've got to be careful on that stuff. Not only is it not right to do, there's difference. And at a young age, you don't know that sometimes the difference between discipline and emotion.
Right.
There's times a horse needs corrected in a correction way, but then there's also where you just emotions have just left you, and then that's when that happens in the industry, that's when the videos get in the wrong hands and things go south.
Well, and because everybody has a camera.
Everybody
has one.
Yep.
So yeah, I mean, we get a lot through the years. We've gotten a lot of horse rescue facilities that use Equinety, and one of the things that they've realized, when you have like a really emancipated horse, it takes a lot to bring that horse back, because there's so many things wrong, and you start going down one path and the wheels are falling off over here, and you try to fix that and they fall off over here. So it can take a long time. What they found with using the Equinety, it seems to hold everything
in place,
and they can get those horses back sooner. And so, last year at T. Wade and Thorpe's junior event, I was talking to a guy because we went to the BFI right after, and it was really our first experience, really dealing directly with the kids because we just hadn't done that before. And I said, you know what? It really impresses me with these kids is how polite they are. They look you in the eye. It's yes or no, sir. Excuse me with the glove, or they'll take the glove off. And I'm like, I was so impressed with how mature some of these kids are. And in that conversation, he goes, you know what I think it is? It's because these kids are growing up in an adult world and they have to conform to that world. And that's why he goes, you take, if your kid's in basketball, well, you drop them off at practice and then you pick them back up and then you go to the game and you're in the stands. And in the team roping specifically, you've got parents that are open with the kids, grandparents that are open with the kids, and it's just a family-oriented
event. Good perspective.
It's so neat, to be able to see that. So there's a lot of hope in, bringing up the younger group in to carry on the tradition of what it's always been.
I agree.
Yeah.
What are some of the, because you have a star-studded endorsee list of participants and some of the best ropers in the world. One is, if you're that young kid, what better way to listen to some of the guys that sponsor people? So what are you looking for? So when you're going to endorse somebody, what are some of the things that you're looking for to where these kids kind of have an idea of how to shape? Maybe it's their social media, maybe it's their presence, maybe it's their win column, whatever it is. And then also on the reverse side of that, what are you also not looking for, if that makes sense?
Well, when we started, of course, we started Equinety in 2014-15 timeframe, and then we didn't get into, T. Wade was our first professional endorsee that we had, and he'd already been using product for a whole year. But, one of the things that we were always looking for is the credibility of the person. We just weren't looking for somebody that would throw a patch on for the sake of, because, and we can get into this here in a bit, but I already knew the power of what our product does. And so now it was finding the right people that also had the same belief and could truly speak it from the heart. And it's interesting because a lot of when we were first getting going in this with the team ropers 5 years ago, and of course I never dreamed of being dominant in the team roping world, but here we are. But I've never really asked any of our endorsees, oh, you got to make this amount of posts per month, or you have to do this, because I think it just becomes mechanical,
infomercial.
Yes, and it's not really true from the heart. And my belief is, if you truly believe in what you're backing, you're going to talk to people about it, and it will be authentic. And T. Wade has mentioned to me several times, Patrick Smith is another one outside of the bookies that Patrick has, but most of the guys and gals say the Equinety patch is the most often asked about. And I think the reason why that is because we do so much promotion everywhere that then they run into somebody that has a patch on and they can actually ask them about it. And so, it's moments like that.
Almost of an ambassador.
Yes. And so, as a kid that's looking for to be endorsed by somebody, I think you have to be passionate about what it is that you're representing, because you don't want to be known as, oh, you're jumping from this company to that company, because then you don't have any credibility. Mm-hmm. And as well as I do, at the end of the day, especially as we age, handshake deals and credibility, and you mean what you say and say what you mean. I mean, that is really all you have, And so it's important, and most of everybody that we have on board were already using product before we ever even spoke about doing any kind of a partnership. And if they hadn't used the product, then I would explain the product to them, what to look for, and I'd say, I'll send you as much as you want for as long as you want, because from my perspective, I was really interested in having this person on, but they also had to believe in it before we did anything.
Right.
So I just look at everything as a win-win. So, one of the things that we've seen now that we're going into our second year with the junior program, some of these kids will, post videos with, music in the background and there's, bad language and cursing. And it's like, that's not going to work because, we're a Christian company and there's certain things that we want to be representative. And actually on the side of all of our, both of our products is Philippians 4:13, because I figured that was a good way for people to get a blessing when they open the product every day.
Absolutely.
And so, we have our core values in what we want. We know what the product does, and we just are looking for like-minded people that, want the best for the horse and, can represent in the best way possible.
Yeah, that's a good one. I think it's good for kids because it's so hard because, you're fitting in, you're around your crowd, and sometimes you just don't realize that even though it's cool in that crowd, if you're trying to market yourself, and I think a lot of it, for young kids, it depends on where you want to go.
Yes.
If this is just a fun hobby for you and you want to do this part-time and get a job and rope and compete and have fun with your friends, it's a great outlet.
Yes.
But if you're wanting to go professional and if you're wanting to sell yourself and take this as a business, because there's a way you can make a living doing this. Okay, if you're going to go that professional route, you need to also hear about what the sponsors are looking for in being able to present yourself, because we can go down the whole line of what this event, just say team roping, what this costs. Let's go down the route of a new truck. Let's go down the route of, you don't even have to go have a new trailer, just a reliable one.
Right.
What are you in? At least 250,000 just with those two things we talked about there. Now we're talking about our horse. We can go down a whole rabbit hole of that. We have feed, we have diesel, we have shoeing, we have vet bills, we have cattle, we got cattle feed. And this is just if you're living at home. We're not talking about if you have your own mortgage and you're trying, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. So it doesn't take long before, okay, there's a lot invested in this. And some of the guys that do a very well job of promoting themselves and promoting their product and keeping themselves professional, a lot of these guys can do well enough sponsorship-wise that they're able to, when they win something, that's what they have.
Right.
When you're getting started, that's the hardest thing that there is to get started, because all those things are now at the forefront. Is if you don't win, these things don't get paid. And so when you're able to crawl through that and make it from there, there's a certain amount of respect that we all have for that guy, because it's very hard.
Yes.
And then the sponsors come. Then it's like, then after a while, then now it's hard, because now you're trying to keep track of making sure the sponsors get what they need and still be able to compete at the same time, where it doesn't pull you away from what made you good. And it's funny how there's just such a balancing act to where no matter what, you're still trying to keep that edge and compete and promote yourself.
Yeah, it's nobody really, when you break it down like that, especially when you're first starting, people just, what you don't know. I mean, that's, everybody has that when you're getting going in things. But I think too, from a company standpoint, looking at people, it's like, sometimes it's not all about, are you the best talent? Because there's potential of, it's like, hey, you know what? But it's not even all about that. It's like, what kind of relationship? Are you fun to be around? Are you courteous to people? How you present yourself, if you are posting videos, are they fun videos? I mean, because that can set you apart if you're funny in a way, or, not doing stupid stuff or trying to be funny, but, sometimes that's just natural coming out with people. So, it's not all about just a name. It's not all just about, are you the best one that there is? I mean, that plays a part in it, but you may not be the best one in the round or the best one at that event, but you've got a lot of other qualities. It goes back to, how's your horsemanship? How's, how do you treat other people and all those types of things. So.
Hello, everyone. If you've been wanting to get into team roping or improve your skills as a beginner header, now's your chance. Join us for the NRS Beginner Headers Only Clinic at the NRS Arena in Decatur, Texas, April 25th through the 27th. This clinic is designed just for the beginner headers up to a number 3. Focusing on roping the horns, solid horsemanship, and the fundamentals you need to build confidence and stay safe while having a great time. And if you can't make it in April, we've got another clinic happening October 3rd through the 5th. So you've got another chance to get in on the action. Don't miss out. Spots fill up fast. Head over to charlycrawford.training or check the podcast description to get the link to enroll. We'll see you in Decatur. Well, I know before we had met, I had heard, because we talked about the amount of clinics that I do throughout the year. I was hearing so many testimonies about your product without even asking people, from the people that are buying your product. Mm-hmm. I'm right in the thick of it, with the clinics that we do and stuff. And so the amount of people that have come to me and talked about your product, that were buying it off the shelf, that are just everyday ropers, and talking about the difference they had seen. And that was, to me, probably as good a testimony as a guy could have heard. And then when you had helped with our Liberty and Loyalty Foundation event, and then a couple of products you said happened to fall off the truck over there at the house. And so I put I had one of my older horse that was coming back off an injury. And then I had a fraternity horse. And when I think I got him on it, and then when I came back, both of them just bulked up. One of them he wasn't a strangly fraternity horse at a young age, but he was a nice looking horse. When I came back, the coat was different. Yeah. And he almost looked like a Navy SEAL when I got back. I'm like, God dang, like, holy smokes, like, damn, that sucker looks good.
Yeah.
And my other one, I felt also some soundness issues that were there that I wasn't feeling. Mm-hmm. And same thing though, just a stud of a looking horse. And so, those are the testimony. And like I say, we're not sponsored. Neither of the people that were getting from, they're going to my clinics. So to me, that was like, all right, I'm seeing what they're saying. I'm seeing exactly what they're talking about. Like, holy smokes, this stuff's got some stuff to it. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, so the Equinety Horse XL, it's 100% amino acids, and it was originally formulated in Canada for the 50-plus crowd anti-aging youth formula. And I learned about it in 2006 and got it into Major League Baseball. So being in Southwest Florida, there's a lot of spring ball down there, and I had a buddy of mine that I took it to, and so we got it into Major League Baseball. And then through the years, the formula had been used on animals, but never really marketed to any one industry. And I had some connections in the horse world, so worked out a deal to use the formula, and I put it in a tub and called it Equinety. So at one time, all three of those labels were sourced from the same raw materials, packaged in the same facility, and just sold under three different names. Since then, the Canadian companies pulled out and went back up to Canada. But, we started off in dressage because I was doing a lot of stuff up in Canada. And so we got into there, and then, got into the Western world. And somehow somebody asked me not that long ago, is like, I see your product in a lot of different disciplines, but how in the heck did you get all the team ropers? I go, that is $1 million question. But it's funny because over the last 5 years, it's really, the team roping industry has really changed. Just the mentality. And maybe it's because of the price of the horses, and they are understanding, hey, we got to take care of these things. But the neat thing with the amino acids in Equinety Horse XL, it's very specific to do a certain function, which is give the body what it needs to release its own hormones. This just allows the body to send its own hormones to its own problem areas.
Now, how many products do you have?
We just have 2 products.
Now, which is the one you're talking about again?
Equinety Horse XL.
The Horse XL. And so what is its primary?
So what its primary purpose is stimulate the pituitary gland, which is a gland that releases hormones. So now the body sends its own hormones to its own problem areas. So what we've seen over 11 years, horses that have stress, anxiety, are a bit spooky, we've seen complete demeanor changes in as little as 2 or 3 days. That's very common. My opinion on that is that there's something bothering the horse that's causing the stress and anxiety. And so when you feed them the product, by the way, the serving size is a teaspoon. There's no loading dose. There's no junk, sugars, fillers, starches. It's just 100% pure amino acids. And so when you give that scoop, the body releases those hormones and then fixes whatever might be the irritation. And so this is why you see the demeanor change that quickly. About a week to 2 weeks, they feel better in their saddle. The recovery, stamina, focus are big things to look for. 2 weeks to 30 days, they're slicking out, filling out, top line, hips. And then the longer term use, the overall hoof quality, sole depth, less injections. That's very common. Driggers, he had one of his horses, he was having to inject every, I think, 3 or 4 months, and he went 15 months without it. Those stories go on and on and on.
And that amino acid.
Yeah, the amino acids. You're just giving the body what it needs to help repair. JC Flake's horse, He started on product last year, and if I remember the story correctly, every time they would shoot, they'd have to inject, and about 30 or 45 days, they stuck a needle in there and fluid started coming out. And so it's been a year and a half with his horse, and he's 100% sound. But, those stories just go on and on and on. Soft tissue, the gut, and we were 7 years on the market with just the Equinety Horse Excel, just the amino acids. And, one of the other advantages I think that we have is, we tell people, don't change anything that you're giving your horse, just add the scoop to it. And then look for these things in 30 days, and you'll be able to determine if you want to stop using other things or reduce them or whatever the case might be. But you'll see such a difference in 30 days, and people are typically saving 20 to 40% in vet bills and other supplements just because the horses are balanced from the inside out. And so about 4 years ago, we had a vet, I guess it's been about 5 years ago, vet contacted us and wanted to know if we wanted to come out with any other products or had any plans. I'm like, well, no. One, there's too much stuff on the market anyways, and two, I wouldn't know what to come out with because we have something that works so well. And he's like, well, I'm a big fan of oils. I went, are you serious? Out of all the things, you're an oil guy? And he goes, well, the problem is people are using the wrong kind of oil. They're using oils that have high omega-6, which is, soy or vegetable, corn, these things. And they look good on the outside, but inside they're inflamed. So we're going to use a flaxseed-based omega-3. It's got 1,000 IUs of natural cold-pressed vitamin E and colloidal silver. So it's a really powerful anti-inflammatory, and it works with the amino acids to give those repaired cells some nutrition, which just helps them operate at optimal levels. So what we've seen, a horse that's never used our Equinety Horse Excel, the amino acids, when they start feeding that in 30 days, it kicks this horse into, and you've seen it firsthand, it takes them to a different level, and they just look good. And even on the younger horses, a lot of people are using it as a preventative because when you can put the right amount of muscle on a horse, you're going to prevent a lot of injuries as well. And so we found that it's good from the breeding shed, increasing motility and fertility, to the colts, to, all the way through stages of life. And I tell people if they really want to see something fun, put it on a geriatric and watch how they pep up because they'll be running around and bucking and playing and feeling good. But then when you add the oil on top of that, it just kicks them up a whole nother notch.
What's really that product called?
That's the Equinety Ultimate OEC.
Ultimate
OEC.
Because that's what, between those two, when you think about the muscle rebuilding and then making them look good and taking away inflammation, the futurities from them, starting them suckers at 3, getting them ready for their 4-year-old, the amount of muscle and things that are keeping, probably from things getting tore up, because they're going through, they're working muscles that you wouldn't normally have just being out there in the pasture or out in the wild. And so to have that support, I think at that young age, because a lot of their knees are still open, they're still growing. And then not only we're talking about that, then we're talking about the NFR horses that we're trying to keep sound on the road, that have probably got some age and things like that. So that's what I've really seen in the team roping world, which I'm so thankful that you're in our industry, because for me, well, I do it. There's one, but there's such a demand for team roping because there's so many team ropings to go to. There's so many horses in this industry. You got 1 steer and 2 horses, so there's so much. I think the team roping, is probably the most has the most economic impact. I feel like it's probably any event in rodeo, because we have the jackpots, we have the futurities, we have so many things just inside of team roping. So there's so many horses.
Yes.
So to be able to tackle that, because I've seen the numbers of what this industry creates, each year, and not exact numbers, but the fact that people are talking in the, $500 million range, of what, feed, horses, money, trucks, all that stuff that is supplemented from being a team roper. And for you guys to come in and help make such a good impact for a lot of the sponsorships of the ropings, but also the need for what all these horses need has been very impactful.
It's been a blessing. I get excited to hear these stories just over and over and over and over, from the pro level down to just the novice. But, if you think about when you've taken team roping, for example, when you back in the box, if your horse is mentally and physically at the top of their game, your odds of money automatically go up. I mean, it's one piece of the whole puzzle, but it's a major piece, because if your horse isn't feeling good or not ready to go or hurting or whatever the case might be, and I think we have the ability to help keep those horses looking and feeling, the best they can possibly be, so you can get the best out of that horse. And if you're hauling up and down the road, I mean, from a lot of the feedback we get from the pros, I mean, their horses, they travel great, they eat, they drink on the road, they recover fast. I mean, what more can you ask out of your horse?
Mm-hmm.
And I think we've had a huge impact in that.
That's to me, I think what, for a lot of people that are just getting into this industry and just kind of starting the team roping, you're kind of trying to balance with the theories and ideas that people have of, well, this horse wasn't designed to have shoes, wasn't designed to have a blanket, God didn't create worming, all those certain things. And my reaction to that is, well, if that horse was just out in the wild, yes, it would survive that way. There's, places in the rocks that's going to trim the feet for them. Mm-hmm. There's certain supplements in the ground that's going to be able to be enough for them to stay alive. Yes, the hair that they have, that they develop in the winter, is going to keep them surviving through the highs and lows of the cold. And then they're going to shed that hair off when it warms up. That's a part of the natural part of a horse. That's correct. But these are athletes.
Yes.
These are performance horses now. Now these horses are coming out of a box, running as hard as they can, being able to now get their butt, being able to pull that steer and do something that it doesn't do in the wild.
Yes.
And so, that's why shoeing is important. That's why nutrition is important. That's why all these things to be able to keep helping this horse rebuild these muscles. These are athletes. Mm. And so that's where it kind of, you have to go on the separate line here of, that's what these horses are. They're getting pushed to the limit so much that they're lacking certain things. So we have to be able to keep those things in them, because, there's a reason why athletes, when they're training and working, they're taking supplements to replenish because they're performing at the highest level. Well, it's the same way with these horses at the rodeos and jackpots.
100%. Well, you look at how the formula originally started, it was a 50-plus anti-aging, because, as you get older, it's like, I've got less years than what I had. And so I want to try to extend that and feel good and do all the things that I want to do. So the older crowd has been using it, using amino acids for years. And you get into the bodybuilding and sports. It's just what you were just saying. Was your body meant to go in and, bulk up on muscle and lift heavy weights and do all that? Or, well, probably not. But, the bodybuilders are using supplements, the athletes are using amino acids for supplements. And probably 7 or 8 years ago, I was talking to a pretty good hand, and she's like, I don't know why I never thought about amino acids for my horse. Like, we're asking them to do so much, and they need some help to recover. And of course, so, it's been a blessing to be able to kind of fill that niche in the industry, and then just hearing all the stories, because you've been around for a while. You've seen umpteen million things come and go, and there's stuff that's still been around for years that works for what it does. But for what our product is doing, we just know that if you just try it for 30 days, the odds of you seeing results and staying on it are so high. And again, you want the best for your horse. And in 30 days, several years ago, we did. I shot a commercial on the Cowboy Channel called the Equinety 30-Day Challenge. And so I was having breakfast with Patrick over there at the Cowboy Channel, and I said, hey, I've got an idea for a commercial. And I said, for years, we've done this thing called the Equinety 30-Day Challenge. So you take a picture before you start, and then day 15 and day 30, and then we get to use testimonials and pictures, and then the odds of whoever's trying that product stays on it for the life of their horse, and multiple horses. And I said, what if we shot a commercial and we just gave it away to whoever wanted it? He goes, I like that one. Can you do it? I said, well, I'll be back next month. He goes, all right, come to the studio. So we shot this commercial, and literally all you had to do is go to the certain landing page that we had and put your name in there. And we just sent you 30 days. And I think we gave over 3,000 units on that. And it was a huge thing. And I think it was a huge springboard for us, because it really gave people an opportunity to really try it for 30 days. But, we try to also price it so it's very inexpensive. I mean, a 3-month supply is $103, so it's $1 a scoop, or actually less than, but it's for all the benefits you get out of your horse. It's, I think, a pretty good deal.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Now, did you grow up in this industry?
No, I grew up in Oklahoma. We had on about 300 acres. We had cattle and, chickens and horses. And I grew up around horses and stuff, but never rodeoed or did anything like that. And then I always had the entrepreneur in me. And so moved to Michigan after college on a startup deal and went $100,000 in the hole on that operation. Then ended up relocating to Florida and got married and had kids. And then I got involved in that. I was in the insurance world for a while. And then, but I was always looking and always hunting for different things and doing side gigs and all kinds of stuff. Probably still drive my wife crazy on that. But then I came across this human product and then helped get into Major League Baseball. And then through those years, because of the connections I did have in the horse world, which weren't a whole lot at the time, but we knew it worked very well on horses. And so that's when I worked out a deal to start the Equinety. And of course had a pretty horrific business partner at the time, and that about sank everything and made it.
Heard of those? Heard those are common. Those are common,
yeah,
especially at the start.
Oh man, yeah. But I tell you, the Lord has definitely blessed us, and I thank Him every day just for the company and the blessings of being able to be in the industry. And so I absolutely love it. And
what have you noticed? Through the other industries you've been in, what have you noticed about ours?
I think the biggest thing is a camaraderie, and it is a big family, and it is a small world overall. Here recently, there's been a few accidents that have happened in the industry. Another one with some pretty serious health concerns, going in for some surgery and things. And man, when people in this industry hear about that, it's just like they circle the wagons, and the outpouring of support and prayers is unlike anything that I've ever seen in any other industry. I mean, it's just, this industry is so tight and so small, and, word travels super fast. But, if you need a hand, man, you got too many people that are helping.
Yeah.
So it's really awesome.
I did read that the other day. Do you remember the names of some of those? I know Kendra Santos had something on. Usually when I do a podcast, I'd forgotten kind of what I read, but
yeah, Marnie Lucenort, I believe with some cervical cancer things going on. So I think she was going in this morning or tomorrow morning. And Tav, last name slips my mind, out there in Tennessee.
Have you heard of some places where people can get involved to help out?
I think if you just search around on Facebook,
I know Kendra Santos does a good job on her page of keeping up with a lot of that stuff. I know you can follow her and stuff like that. Yeah. So I know a lot of the instances we'd had last year and stuff like that where people getting hurt, there was always pages. Driggers did a lot with some of the guys in the team roping world that, that we had a few of them. And like you say, the industry does a great job of taking care of their own.
Yeah.
That's one of the things I love so much about it as well.
Yeah. Tavin Bagsby was the other one. He was in an accident a couple months ago. From what I heard, they were team roping and the horse kind of tripped over itself and just did a complete barrel roll. And so he was on life support there for quite a bit, but I think he's making some good headway. And Marnie, who's been with us since we started, really about probably 2015, 16, who is not a supplement user at all. And she's been a huge backer of ours. And so she just found out this news about a week ago and going in. So, but, I was talking to her husband, Bob, and he's like, man, the people that have reached out, it just like brings him to his knees, so yeah, it's been really, really great just seeing all of that.
Yeah.
I mean, it's what people should be doing.
Absolutely. Yeah. That's a part of the reasons why we're down here, to be a servant.
That's right.
Help out in need. When you got in this industry, what did you see that, you're talking about, as a company, there has to be a certain ROI, there has to be a certain return on investment, right? And so when you're looking at certain events or certain things where you're going to put advertising? You know, what are you kind of looking for? Because, you know, when you think about team roping, there's a huge amount of team ropers. Like, is there events that you see? Is there things that, like, as a company and as a sponsor, you know, what are you kind of looking at to where, like, this is strategic to where if I can, you know, there's a certain things that this one, the numbers aren't there. You know, okay, here's where we're going to get the most, because at the end of the day, a guy's got to make his company work.
Sure.
And so you're looking at ways to where's my attention going to go towards?
It's a very interesting question. And I will start it by saying, since the beginning, we have never fit into any business model that's a standard business model of anything. And I'm talking from Facebook advertising. I think at 1 year, we were spending north of $750,000 in Facebook ads. And so I had a special Facebook person as my person to help me. And they would get on there like, well, looks like everything's running pretty good. Do you have any questions? I'm like, well, yeah, I have a question about this. And they wouldn't know the answer because they just couldn't comprehend that how we were converting and doing things. But it's been this way from the beginning. And, you know, if we take it back to the old advertising days and, you know, really taking it back to newspapers or even today's in magazines, as an advertiser, when you run an ad, you're looking for a 1 or 2% conversion rate, which is absolutely horrific because you'll go broke doing that. But that's what is considered like a successful ad. Well, when we first started, the only place you could buy Equinety Horse Excel was through our website. And so I would get on social media and I'd put up some, you know, before and after pictures and things, and I would give away 30 days and then want them to take pictures and do the Equinety 30-day challenge. And so I could track what our conversion rate was, and it was around 30 to 33%, which is off the charts. So then what I figured out was, well, what if I partner with somebody with a database, you know, farrier, trainer, whoever it might be? And so I would talk to this person, explain the product, say, let me send you some product so you can believe in the product. And then once they're like, oh my gosh, and I said, well, hey, how about I send you like a dozen 30-day samples and then you hand them out to your people. So our conversions were north of 95%. And so I'm like, okay, so our model is how many tubs can I get into the hands of people that at least will spend a few minutes to understand what to look for and things, which isn't too difficult. But so going through the years, knowing what our conversion rates are, which is why I was excited to do that commercial on the Cowboy Channel a few years back, because I already knew what the outcome was going to be. So now, about 5 years ago, Nick Griggs over at the Team Roping Journal, who I didn't know who this was, he cold calls me in his, I go, man, if this guy is an old cowboy, roping cowboy, just shoot me right now. Well, John, I want to, So I said, well, Nick, I don't advertise. Like, I'm a marketing guy, branding. And I said, on top of that, I said, I don't even have a team roper, So this is going back 5 years. I said, I don't have a team roper that has a name, that anybody would recognize. So I'm not just going to spend money, throwing something in a magazine. I said, give me a couple weeks. Let me see what I can come up with. So Danita Walker, who's over in Lipan, she's got a rehab operation. She's been using product since 2017. So every single horse that comes in her facility, she puts on product. They come out ahead of schedule and they look great. And most everybody that leaves there is using Equinety on the way out. And so I called her and I said, I need a team roper like yesterday. Like, who do you know? She goes, let me make a phone call. So she calls me back. She goes, I've got the perfect couple for you. I said, who's that? She goes, Tyler and Jesse Wade. They've been using product for a year. I'm like, well, what's her story? She goes, well, his main horse had fractures in both front legs, was supposed to be out for, I think, 6 months, came back in 3. And so they love it. They'd love to partner with you. And so T-Wade was the first guy that we had on, and he's been amazing. You know him very well. And so he's always thinking and coming up with ideas and this and that. And a couple years ago, I guess about 3 years ago, T-Wade calls me up and he goes, hey, we were already running some commercials on the Cowboy Channel with him and a few other folks, but he goes, hey, I want to have a new commercial shot and get the camera crew out here and do a new commercial, but I want to go and talk about how the product has helped each one of my horses in their own ways, but there's also commonalities with all of them. Do a new commercial and you don't have the camera come out and do this new commercial. I'm like, all right, you realize these commercials are 30 seconds, right? He's like, no, not like that. He goes, like MTV Cribs. And I'm like, oh, dear Lord. And,
in T-Wade fashion.
Yeah, T-Wade fashion. I said, what are you going to have, your hat cocked sideways and sunglasses and a doobie? He goes, well, probably not the doobie part, but...
I could just see him saying, well, you wouldn't?
Yeah. I said, well, let me think about that. And so I called him the next day. I said, how about this? We'll call it the Equinety barn check. Now, so here was my idea. When you watch the pros on TV, you see them do their run, 4 seconds, 6 seconds, whatever it might be. And if they win, then they come over and get a short interview of the same questions every time. I thought, what if we did something that would highlight whoever it is, T-Wade in this example. And so as a marketing piece for them, they're obviously going to talk about Equinety. And so, it's a win-win in the whole thing. And people probably want to see, well, what's his place look like anyways? And now at the same time, during that same time frame, I had called him. I said, hey, who do you know in the breeding world that we could really kind of do some like internal studies? Because I know this stuff works in the breeding shed. So I'll supply him with all the product for the whole breeding season. He goes, yeah, let me make a phone call. So he calls me back the next day. He goes, I got somebody for you. And I said, who's that? He goes, Bill Myers. I went, really? He goes, yeah, he's open to it. And so I sent a bunch of product out to Bill Myers. And so we ended up shooting that barn check with Bill Myers. Then I found out that whole story around Bill and his whole family and Frenchman's guy had never been documented in video form. I mean, people kind of knew about it. And it's probably one of my favorite ones. We've done probably about 15 of these barn checks. But so in T-Wade's, which is, you can just only imagine. So he's, starts off with him and Jesse, and then she has to leave to go pick up their little one. And he's going down the stall talking about each one. He goes, one of the things that we really pride ourselves on here at my place is our employees, they're so important to us and everything. And just about this time, and he goes, and this month, it's this guy, as he points up, and it's a picture of him on his door. So, some of these barn checks.
I knew it was going somewhere.
Yeah,
I was just being patient enough to see where he's headed.
Yeah. So, anyways, getting back to your question, we've never fit into any one business model. And most of these things that we sponsor, it's all because of the relationships that I've built. And like T-Wade, he'll sometimes go, hey, this would be a great one for you to be involved with, or this one. And, with BFI was easy because Cammie Peterson's my rep over at Cowboy Channel. And of course, they co-own our partners in the BFI. And so it was an easy segue into there. And so and going back to our earlier discussion with the kids, it's so important to develop relationships because, we get bombarded on a daily basis of people wanting to be sponsored or wanting us to sponsor events. It's like, well, I don't know who these people are, but if somebody, I run into somebody somewhere and they're like, hey, let me introduce you to this person. You develop a relationship. Everything's relationships, And so that's been a big part of all the places that we're at is just based on introductions from this person to that person. So it's interesting to say this, but it's never come back to a quote, oh, what's my ROI on this? Because I have no idea. And, a lot of companies out there too, that's like, hey, I'm going to go sponsor this pro rider and then my sales are going to blow up. No, that was just the first check he cut. And then get ready. So when you look at from our strategy, from a branding aspect, it's like, okay, we got T-Wade, and then T-Wade introduced me to several others. And then as I got in the Team Roping Journal, and they introduced me to some people. And what we tried to do is pick the best of the best that had the credibility, had the name. They're known for not just slapping patches on their shirt. Well, then when T-Wade came up with this brilliant idea of, the barn check.
MTV Cribs.
Yeah, the MTV Cribs. I'm like, okay. And that was a significant checks cut. But nothing, I don't think anything like that had ever been done at the quality that it was. Because
right.
the quality of them, it's like watching a little movie, really. I mean, the quality is phenomenal. And so, I look to how can I keep pouring back into the people that we're sponsoring? Because I come from the mindset, it's not their job to sell Equinety, which is why I don't require them to make X amount of posts or do anything like that. Because if they're excited about it, they're going to talk to people about it. They'll post about it. They'll do what they want to do. But it's my job to help build a strong partnership and to keep building the brand and helping them. And so, like, all of our sponsored writers, like I deal with them personally when they're out of product. And so they'll usually text or call. But that's how I kind of stay in touch with.
Yeah. How you keep the relationship going.
Yes. And so Clint Summers, when he's running low, he'll send me a text. He goes, hey, I need some more transmission fluid. You know what?
I like it. I like it.
Yeah. So, but no, it's fun.
Because that's impressive enough right there, because that's been probably the best head horse at the NFR for the last couple of years. And is he 22 now? I haven't heard the latest on how old he is.
I don't recall, but I know when I
need to text him and find out, because
I think he got him in 21. Does that sound right?
Probably.
I think he was only planning on trying to get a year out of him, and it's been 4. But
so, I mean, you talk about a testimony on being able to keep one of the rankest horses. I mean, the horse's mind's there. You can see it in the way it works. But to keep those legs under him, that's going to take maintenance, and he's done a good job with it. But then, obviously, we're finding out some of the ingredients that are also being ingested that's going to help him.
Secret sauce.
Right. The Chick-fil-A sauce right there is making it delicious. That's cool, though. I mean, like I say, those are the things that you talk about, is because that's not. I need to find out for sure how old he is, but that's probably one of the older ones that I know of.
Yeah.
And so there's something to that.
Yeah. Well, and look at Rooster, Patrick Smith's one. Yeah. So yeah, it's fun. It really is a blast and humbling, and just to be a part of this whole industry, and to look at all the blessings that we get as a company, but all the relationships that you build, and more importantly, out of all of it, is how the product is really truly helping the horses to do what they need to do. Because
it's got to be really hard in that, line of work, because there's so many supplements out there. So you guys have done a good job with, your branding, your marketing, and your testimonies, that you hear about Equinety is much more than any other product. And so, and like I say, I've heard it from the top guys that aren't sponsored that use it. And, a lot of the stories there as well. And then, like I say, then I get to see it a lot when I'm out there on the clinics, people talking about what it's done for their horses.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Yeah. And also through the years, it's helped a lot of mystery lameness type things that people throwing everything under the sun at them, they still can't figure out. Then they give them the amino acids and Equinety.
Interesting.
And it's like, okay, the horse is fixed. But, when you really understand what the product is doing and why it's working, then it makes logical sense. We're just giving the body what it needs to help repair itself.
Yeah.
And, you're skipping a lot of Band-Aids and everything else. So.
Yeah. Yep. And everything in this is safe, correct?
100% safe. If you were to eat a lean 8 to 10 ounce steak, and you were to take the amount of proteins and break it to amino acids, it's equivalent to 1 scoop of Equinety.
Nice.
So, there's no fillers in it. There's no sugar, starches. If you're on the English side where you're worried about FEI drug testing, there's nothing to find, because it's just amino acids.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Now, what other companies do you own?
Well, I had an extra 30 seconds in my day, so I there's a barrel racing, Good Times Barrel Racing Association out east, and they had contacted me probably about 7 years ago or so, and said, hey, we've got this organization, and so we put a lot of barrel races on, and we use your product, and want to know if you wanted to sponsor our event. I'm like, sure, but I can send product. And so we'd sponsor them with product, and then we started doing some added money stuff. And before long, it grew into this whole thing. So they're streamed on 321 Action Video, but their whole arena is wrapped in Equinety. Everything's Equinety over there. And a couple of years ago, Stacy Warner had called me, and she says, listen, you got to come out with something for dogs. And I'm like, okay, why is that? She goes, well, the dog industry is way bigger than the horse industry. And she goes, I think as well as we've seen this work on horses, the dog market is even bigger. They're a little crazier at times, but because she also
because everybody owns a dog or two.
Yeah, that's right.
so everybody's a lot of people.
Yes, that's right. So she raises the mini Aussies, and so this is what her mindset was. And so I happen to be driving back to Florida from Oklahoma, and I get a phone call from a buddy of mine that was a strength conditioning coach for the New York Yankees back in the day. He goes, "Hey, you got anything for dogs, or is it just horses?" And I said, "Well, I've got something coming for dogs, but why are you asking me that question? What are you doing?" And he goes, "Well, I'm working for the Pasco County, which is just north of Tampa, Florida." He goes, "I'm working for the Pasco County Sheriff's Department in canine unit." He goes, "I want to get those amino acids in here on these dogs." I said, "All right." So we get back. So the product is called K10. So take your canine up a notch with K10. And it is a slightly different formula than the Equinety. We added histidine, which is very important for the dog's digestive and immune system. And so, anyways, we do I get back to Florida. I go up to the Sheriff's Department, and we do a 100-day test on 40 dogs. And the average dog put on 3 to 4 pounds of lean muscle mass. One of the dogs they were getting ready to retire did a complete 180, which, you're involved in the military stuff, but as expensive as these dogs are, and you have a very short lifespan, if you can get an extra 6 months, extra year, that is going to save a lot of money over the long term. And so there's a guy that we met last year, Mike and Mora. He's up in Mineral Wells, I believe, and a Brazilian guy, and he's at the top of the totem pole in his world for working cow dogs, and has a huge presence on social media. And so he came on board with us with the K10. And so his dog Joker, which everybody knows in that world, always had digestive issues. And so he'd be fine for a couple, 3 weeks, then he'd have loose stool for 2 or 3 days. And they tried everything at this dog, and they just chalked it up as, well, that's Joker. That's how he is. And so they started feeding him K10, and bam, just hadn't had any problem since. And then he had some pups that had some digestive issues and blood in the stool, and they couldn't fix it. And they put him on K10, and bam, it fixes the gut. Can we say every single time? No, we can't say that. But
it's kind of like, I forgot what you called it earlier, but I like we call it almost those mystery.
Yeah, mystery lameness.
Those mystery lamenesses.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so, yeah, when you can just give the body what it needs to help repair itself. But unfortunately, the vets are so drug-oriented and pharmaceutical-oriented, and that's the world that they grow up in. And there's definitely a time and a place for it, too. But I think more and more people are looking at going back to the natural, things.
What would Jesus do?
Yeah, there you go.
When we're talking about, with what we eat,
yes.
One ingredient foods.
Yes.
Chicken, steak, vegetables, fruit, when you're thinking about that. Yeah, exactly. And so you're thinking about that's what Jesus ate. That's what those were certain things that, we were brought up to eat before all these things got manufactured. And dog food is probably extremely manufactured, if not all of it, and so I could only imagine what probably some of these things are getting ingested. And so, I agree with you on the natural stuff for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. So, so we've kind of kicked the K10 off the ground here last year, and it's just kind of a grassroots thing. We've got a commercial shot that we'll probably be running on the Cowboy Channel with that.
Awesome.
But, and so my son's involved in that. And so, it's crazy busy.
I know, Bill, you sent some to Bill Force. So Bill Force, he's one of our military guys with our event that we have every year. And he's a vice president on our board of Liberty and Loyalty. And so Bill Force, he's just an amazing guy. I've done a podcast on him. A lot of guys know I'm talking about. And he's just a stud of a guy. He was a Marine, then he was in law enforcement. Then he was a helicopter pilot, I think, for 18 or 20 years for the Perot family, Ross Perot and Ross Perot Jr. Ross Perot is really coming out a lot more now because when he ran for president, now you're seeing a lot of the stuff he was talking about. Now we're actually seeing what he's talking about. Right. He was kind of a Trump ahead of his time.
Yes.
And I think he was a personal bodyguard as well, also, personal security and a helicopter pilot for him. and that family and that business for, I think, 18 or 20 years. And so just the stories and what he had learned through that process of it. But now that he's retired from all of that, retired Marine, retired police force, retired from working for Ross Pro, now for fun, he has a canine unit and he goes and finds people.
Yes.
And so he has a canine team, and I was telling him about your product, and you had sent him some stuff, and he was telling me just the hype of some of his dogs that were getting used. I think he had one that was older too, that he was getting more life out of, and he could see a huge difference.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. And, if anything, the one thing with the dog world that you can't do with the horses, bring them in the house and, they sleep in the bed half the time, and, they're more family than your spouse sometimes. But, yeah, I mean, the dog market is crazy. But again, you look at the benefits of how it and what it does for the horses, and it's the same thing. Because even with people, I mean, our cells, we're all mammals, so all the cells work the same, and it'll work the same. Yeah.
Well, man, I appreciate everything you guys doing for our Liberty and Loyalty event, the Hero Celebration we do in November. What that feels like there's kind of a certain bond that you had. I know when I called and talked to you about it a little bit, but when it came to helping out with this event, you've got some military in your family background.
Yeah, my great grandpa was in World War I, and my great uncle was in Iwo Jima. My dad was a Marine. My uncle was a Marine. So I grew up in that realm. Was actually born in San Diego, down there on the base, and wasn't there for very long before we moved back to Oklahoma. But it's always kind of been in the family and
in the blood. Yeah,
in the blood. And it's unfortunate with all the wokeness stuff that's gone on, and the people that are saying whatever they want because of the First Amendment, and not recognizing the reason why they have that is because of the people that died. And then, of course, you can go down the rabbit holes and say, oh, well, why did we get in that war? Or why did we get in that one? It's like, were they manufactured? Were they allowed to happen? So it's really...
wasn't because of the Marines.
No.
It was way higher up than the guys that had the boots on the ground. That's for sure.
That's 100%. And so, it's really unfortunate that there are people in this world that are willing to sacrifice their own military and their own people, innocent people, and it's really sad. It's evil, straight up evil. And so, the people that have gone, the military that have gone through the wars and that are missing limbs and have the injuries and the lifelong PSD that seem to be forgotten about, and they're on the streets and homeless, and it's like we're sending billions of dollars to these other countries for who? Well, now we're finding out thanks to Doge, and we can't even take care of our own people that you sacrificed for your own,
right.
So it can get you disturbed pretty quick.
Yeah, I've talked to a lot of people on that pullout during Afghanistan, or when they pulled out of Afghanistan. I mean, that was such a slap in the face to so many guys. Man, that was hard for a lot of guys. But yeah, just the event, to at least be able to have, this is what's been fun about it, is being able to have the Western industry get behind me and being able to kind of at least just give a day of a weekend to celebrate these guys and let them come out and rope. And we're starting to get so many guys now coming to it. They don't even rope. They just love coming and hanging with the guys.
Yeah.
And so it's been a fun event, but it's been something that's just being around these guys. I've learned a different kind of loyalty, There's with the buds that I have, rodeoing and the guys that I've had, that's something I'll remember my whole life and stuff. But the bond between these guys that we've had now is, when there's something to it when you got a set of guys around you that have your six.
Yep.
And would truly take a bullet for you.
Sure.
You learn there's a different level of camaraderie and loyalty and brotherhood when you get around these guys. And, it's helped me become a better friend. It's helped me become a better person, a better father. Right. And so it's been really uplifting to be around these guys and to have sponsors like you guys that come in and help out so much with it. And I knew that there was certain, when you said there's just certain lingo that you had. I'm like, hey, did you serve? No, but Dad did, right? Marine? Yeah. There's something in the blood in there.
Yeah, can't get that out.
Love it. I love it. Well, man, I truly appreciate everything that you've done for our industry, man. The guys that you've propped up, the stuff that you're doing for the horses, what you've done to help with the economic impact in our industry. And so, man, we just appreciate everything you guys are doing, man.
No, I thank you. And, it truly is humbling and a blessing to be able to do the things that we do. And, I give the Lord all the praise for that. And actually on both of our products, I've got Philippians 4:13 on there, and that was my way of saying, hey, maybe whoever opens this product today gets a blessing of some kind.
I love it.
But when that first came out years ago, and every now and then we'd get a phone call from somebody like, hey, I just saw this Bible verse on there. Is that by accident? Or I'm like, what? How did that get on there? Yeah. So, but anyway, no, it is truly humbling, and just to be a part of everything, and it's a lot of fun, and so very humbling for sure.
Well, we appreciate you, and we appreciate everything your product stands for, and have fun at the American. It's going to be a fun week.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Looking forward to it. So thank you so much for having me on. I really appreciate it.
All right, man. Take care. Ropers, are you ready to step up your game? My online course, The Basics of Roping, is built for beginners, but packed with tools to help ropers of all levels sharpen their skills. With over 2 hours of instruction, frame-by-frame swing breakdowns, when to turn your hand over to keep your loop open, when and where to let go of your rope so you can get the horns in the middle of that loop, over 15 dummy drills to simulate real-life runs, you'll have everything you need to improve. Go to charlycrawford.training and follow the link under the course tab to get started today.